All right, folks, we are back. As you can see, our OBS setup continues to evolve. I'm sure I'm doing lots of things that I'll realize later were super wrong. We've got a little more info up there, including what we're doing. I'm recording this in the evening, but you're probably seeing this hopefully on Tuesday. And this is our first actual preview of the book. We're going to get into our first section, talk a little bit about what's going on there, why I wrote it, why I thought it was important enough to go first, and we'll get into that here in just a second. If you haven't caught the other videos, my name is Colby. I am the author of the Game Master's Handbook of Patrons, Pacts and Pantheons. This is my first solo title. It is not my first Game Master's title. I've previously written for Traps, Puzzles, and Dungeons, Instant Towns and Cities, and Legendary Locations, including all of the books, most of the Books A Million bonus content. And there's a really cool Daggerheart book coming soon that I'm also got to work on. But yeah, let's get into the book. Let's see if the scene transition works. Hey, there we go. So here we see the cover. This is the totally up-to-date, as it will be printed cover, I believe. I mentioned I'm a little bit pedantic. I did get the D20 corrected so that the numbers show correctly. One thing I want to draw attention to, I'm going to zoom in down here in the corner. So earlier on in the process, we were talking about having 4 subclasses. We have this updated now. In the process of writing, I ended up with 5 subclasses. So that's the Mystery Cleric, the Oath of the Sacred Fist Paladin, the Faithless Warlock, the Way of the Monastic Monk, and the Circle of Thorns Druid. So that's one more subclass than you thought you were getting. Try to get us recentered here. So I'm going to kind of skip ahead a little bit. We're just showing off some sections. Not going to show everything at the moment. First, though, look at this gorgeous art. This is all the art in this book is by Luke Eidenschink. Phenomenal. This sort of old school black and white ink process. He has a phenomenal Instagram. Take the name off the cover, go look him up. He does a lot of videos where he shows you how he actually makes these. Top notch. And hey, here it is again. Another beautiful piece, and our first chapter. So, this book largely, if you try to think of the unifying theme, it's sort of the supernatural framework of your fantasy world. So we're not really drawing a hard line necessarily between some of these traditional categories. Instead, we wanted to have one resource that covers all the different kinds of divinities, some things that are called gods, some things that are not called gods, but probably should fit in that category. And then, of course, all these other things you find in a fantasy world like archfey and fiends and aberrations and all kinds of weird stuff. So we're trying to show you how these things can be thought about, can be structured, how you can build them into your world. And so we're kind of combining a little bit of kind of an academic understanding so you know some of the basics, but we always bring it back to gameplay. What does this actually do at the table? If you have this kind of world that you've built, what does that do to the players? What does that do to the kinds of stories you can tell? So that's always what we're coming back to. So right from the very top, we have a lot of sort of disclaimers here in the sense of a lot of times what people think of as religion is very narrowed, especially in this sort of U.S. context that I'm writing out of. A lot of times folks associate that with, you know, it's their grandma's church, it's the Disney Hercules musical, and that's kind of it. Either fire and brimstone or color-coded divinities with hard and clear domains separating them. And the reality is, even in the real world, it's way more complicated than that. There are entirely different frameworks for how we think about this stuff. So what I've done here is, I lay out some of these sort of provisions. One thing that's cool is there's some GM notes scattered throughout the book. Each of these just sort of highlights an aside that is something I thought was important for you to know. So this one's really experienced GMs that probably already know this, but fantasy worlds are a little bit different because with magic, with high technology, with some of these things, sometimes you can just prove that the divinities exist by casting a spell. Sometimes you can call up an angel and ask them questions. So we're just pointing out, like, hey, if you have those kinds of things, it limits the kind of world you can build. And so we point out some ways you could get around that, or just things you should know of before a sneaky player drops it on you out of nowhere, and you have to pivot and make something up to cover. So we've got our notes. Here's where we get into the meat of this first section: religious settings. So most fantasy worlds default to a kind of polytheism. This is really common in a lot of the official D&D settings. In a polytheistic setting, there's lots of different gods. Poly meaning many, theistic meaning God. And this is not just how the characters think of the world, but you're actually choosing the truth of that world. So if you build a polytheistic world as a GM, that's truly what the world is. Now, different characters within that world might think of it differently. A divinity might insist that they are the only one or should be the only one. But the reality is there's lots of different divinities. Usually polytheism also has sort of divided duties. Often they come in pantheons, interconnected sets of deities, often with complicated family trees or shared origin stories. So polytheism is often taken as the default, but there's lots of different other options. There's also sort of subsets. So let's look at the text I'm actually giving you here. So we have this sort of description here. So we talk about, kind of what I just said. Lots of different deities, sort of responsibility and power is divided up. This often also is combined with religious pluralism, which means all these different religions kind of sit peacefully side by side for a given value of peace. So you might have a deity of the sun, and a deity of the moon, and a deity of the ocean, and they're all siblings, and they all share a temple together. And you might have an elven version, and a dwarven version, and a human version. And all of these kind of coexist. Not always, but that's the pluralistic side of it. So here's one of the things that we really fought for as we went through this. Each section, triggering the preview text. Each section ends with examples. Some of these get a lot weirder than this, and so we wanted you to be able to go look this up somewhere. So we say, examples of polytheism in history include Greek, Roman, Norse, and Egyptian mythology. In fiction, it can be found in Dungeons & Dragons Forgotten Realms, as well as Battlestar Galactica. Partially, I just included that because it's weird to remember that Battlestar Galactica is polytheistic. And also Game of Thrones, where there's lots of different religions going on. We also have some breakdowns of kind of subsections or sort of related practices. We have a section on animism and nature religion, ancestor worship. Then we get into our next section on monotheism. So think of this as like the building blocks. Before you can get into your world and start filling it up with all these things, you've got to make some choices. So we've got polytheism, monotheism, dualism, pantheism, cosmic law, eldritch horror, Fun choice. Then we talk about some of the helpful concepts as we get into this. So we have syncretism, which is a fancy way of saying sometimes religious practices blur and meld together over time. Sometimes they're more forcefully stuck together. We look at how some of the stories of Celtic Europe changed coming into out of the Middle Ages. A lot of what was probably considered religious practices got sort of reimagined as hero stories and fairy tales. So we wanted to highlight that sort of practice, both because it's interesting to know, but also it can be interesting in your game. A divinity getting downgraded to an archfey might have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. We also talk about the problem of omnipotence. This is huge. I think sometimes this is part of why GMs are reluctant to engage a lot with religious elements like this. So if you have these really, really powerful deities and divinities, and something bad is going on, why don't they just fix it? Why even involve the players? Why not just let them take care of it, and that's the whole story? Well, we give you some examples. We talk about imperfect deities, deities that are not all powerful. This is actually fairly common in especially polytheistic settings. Not most of the divinities can't do everything. They have limitations. They have conflicts. There's only so much they can do. So this gives a place for heroes and adventurers to step up and get involved. We also talk about sort of conflicting deities where good and evil or different sort of forces might be in opposition to each other, meaning they can't act the way they would like. Maybe it has to do with free will, or maybe the world is just too fragile for divinities to act too directly on it. We see that happen. Spoilers for some of the weird, deep metaphysics of Critical Role, but this is part of why the Critical Role deities are all at a remove from the world. Their conflicts were too dangerous to the material plane. We talk about ambiguity in religion. Just because players might be able to contact, might be able to contact some kind of, deity or angel or something, that doesn't mean they always can or should. You can still have room for confusion, for misdirection. You can also have different sort of sects and factions and denominations involved. It's interesting to have two religions who are in conflict, but historically, if you want to see the really juicy stuff, it's when two sections of the same religion get into conflict. That's a really fun place to plug players in and give them a chance to tilt the balance one way or the other. Will this be a religion or institution of justice or mercy? Is it going to be a religion of violence and conquest? Sometimes these things can tilt either way in your world, and so it's a place for the players to really get involved and choose a direction. What else do we have? Pop us back up here. We also have this sort of breakdown of kinds of religious characters. So this might be something that you have not thought about a lot if you're not a religious person yourself, or depending on what kind of tradition you're in. The reality is the vast majority of people who follow a religion are usually not the clerics. In fact, in the real world, a staggering percentage are not. You're talking 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000 And even more than that, the person who runs the local church might not be a big fancy spellcasting muckety muck. Um, when we look at the sort of distribution of challenge ratings in most D&D worlds, an average cleric in a little village might be like a CR half, CR1. Maybe they've got some spell slots. Maybe they're struggling to cast a few cantrips. Um, it's mostly like high priests and oracles and sages and player characters who get to do things like bringing people back from the dead and reattaching limbs and calling down miraculous fireballs. So we talk about some of the differences here and kind of how they relate to the players. Um, we talk about some of these more obscure categories like academics. There's a lot of scholarship behind most religions, and it might look very different from one to the next. That could be a bardic tradition where things are passed down through a sort of oral tradition. That could be translators. That could be theologians. Um, and this is important because when your players want to know something, they're going to go hunt down the academics. We talk about mystics and monastics, folks who are out kind of on the fringes, trying to avoid all the day to day. Iconoclasts, the folks who want to tear it all down and start over. And then, of course, the militants. Then we get into some example religious settings. These are kind of examples of how this might play out in your world. One that I really enjoy, we'll look at two here. So the fragile sphere is a lot of fun. This is kind of Cthulhu-esque. This is a sort of real extreme that divinities are not a good thing to have in the world. A lot of religious traditions in the real world, think Raiders of the Lost Ark. They open the Ark of the Covenant. It is too much. Everybody's faces melt. So in this setting, all the divinities are sort of held at arm's length. It's a very different spin on a traditional campaign. One I've been having a lot of fun with is called Godfall. This is a setting I've been playing with for a long time, and it's actually a setting where players have the chance to rise to divinity. Again, it's just another place to sort of plug in and play with the world. Now, we get to favor and gifts. So this might actually be one of the most important elements of the book. So we wanted a tangible way to track the relationship of a player character and one of these supernatural entities, whether it's a god or it's their archfey patron or it's a lich they owe their soul to, whatever that is, we wanted to have a way to track this. Because these guys are powerful. They have cool perks to give. They also have terrible wrath to unfold. So favor is a way of tracking this. We've made a list. I'll scroll down here a little bit and then kick us back in. Yeah, here we go. So we have all these different classifications. So for divinities, it has to do with their domain or their sort of area of focus. For patrons, it has to do with the kind of patron they are. So Fae want different things than Celestials, different things than Fiends, different things than Undead. So everybody has this list of favor. So these are things that a player can do, sort of going through the world, that's going to make their patron happy. Now, not all of these will apply to every individual deity within that subsection, but this is the one for death. Death is a multifaceted thing. You might be the devotee of a gentle psychopomp, or a shepherd who guides souls to their rest, or you might be a ghoulish cultist of a god of destruction. Perhaps you are seeking the universal principles of life and death. The favor of death can vary wildly, rewarding wanton slaughter or reverent rites of grieving, though typically not both from the same deity. So that's kind of the thing we were talking about. Um, a god like a deity like the Raven Queen, who is about sort of the inevitability, but also the importance of death. Doesn't just want you to go around killing everybody, uh, but then you might also have a god who revels in death and destruction. Some of like the dark deities from the Forgotten Realms. Um, so we'll scroll down here and look at this. So you can see how we kind of go back and forth between these different visions of death. So you perform memorial observances when visiting graveyards or places of rest, or you intentionally cause the death of a living thing. You counsel another through the process of grief and help perform the accompanying rites or rituals. You end the tortured existence of a powerful undead being or the root cause of an undead outbreak. You cause the death of a powerful or important being. Things that decrease favor. You treat death flippantly or with disrespect. You observe a death or kill. You observe a death or kill another being and leave their remains without proper burial. We know how adventurers roll here. You use magic or artifice to circumvent the natural processes of death, especially through necromancy. So here's how this actually works. So we don't want GMs and players to have to constantly track every little point of favor. So our recommendation is that you only update favor at the end of a session. Basically, the question is, did things get better or worse, and how much? If you play a lot, maybe you want to do every other session. If you play long sessions, maybe you want to go twice a session. So we look at some of these. They're intentionally spaced out, basically on a +1, +2, +3 scale. So these are tiny things. And this is something you might do like in downtime. You go to a graveyard and maybe perform a ceremony. Or maybe your character is some kind of homicidal maniac and you intentionally cause the death of a living thing. At the end of the session, your GM would go, okay, well, what did you do from your favor list? And it's like, well, I did these. And it's like, all right, your favor goes up 1 point. Favor only tracks 1 to 50. We kept it very simple. We can actually see down here. Here's the list of gifts. So as you accumulate these, each of these stack one to the next. However, you can only have one gift of one level, period. So a 3+ gift, a 10+ gift, a 25+ gift, and a 50+ gift. We wanted to clarify that way, like folks weren't, worshiping a ton of different divinities to try and, make this super crunchy. We really wanted to preserve the flavor of this and the benefits. So roughly the hope is that these would all correlate with tiers of play. So between levels 1 and 5, you would get your first 3 points, pick up Blessing of Gentle Rest. Between levels 6 and 10, you pick up 5 more points, up to the Blessing of the Last Gift. Between 11 and 15, you get up to 25+. We know leveling slows down as you go. So Mercy of the Reaper's Scythe. And then finally, between 16 and 20, you get that last 50 points total, and you get this stat bonus. All of them end with a stat bonus. So one of the things we did was we want each of these sets of gifts to make the player, to enable the player character to fulfill that character fantasy. So what should a follower of a divinity of death be able to do? Well, they can spare the dying, and they can cast gentle repose. They can preserve a body for burial, or they can just barely hold someone at the edge of life. Blessing of the Last Gift. this is a way to sort of gain knowledge from things that have died. So you can pick up a tool or skill proficiency or language from a creature that dies within 30 feet of you. Now, this doesn't have a limit on how many times it can be used, but you can only have one at a time. Now, this one's a lot of fun, and I went really back and forth with the editors on this, but it's such a specific ability, we felt like it flies here. Mercy of the Reaper's Scythe. When you reduce a creature to 0 hit points, it can't regain hit points or be returned to life by any effect for 24 hours. If this exceeds the time frame of an ability that would return that creature to life, that ability is nullified. At GM discretion, some exceptional creatures might be too powerful to be affected by this gift. In those instances, you deal an additional 1d8 force damage to such creatures the first time you deal damage to them each round. To put this together, I went and looked at a bunch of different creatures that have abilities that let them pop back after they're dead. So, classic example, vampires. So we look at the vampire in the 2014 basic rules. Vampires have regeneration, and they also have Misty Escape. So instead of dying when they drop to 0 hit points, a vampire can return to their resting place within 2 hours to reconstitute themselves. So this ability would potentially let you just take out a vampire, assuming you are the one to reduce it to 0 hit points. This is pretty big, but also, if you're a follower of a divinity of death, this makes sense. Like, this is what you have dedicated your life to. We wanted to sort of reflect that. So we looked at the list. This helps you take out vampires. Depending on what they have going on, it does not take out a lich. Liches have days to get back on their feet. So they will probably be okay from this. Now, we did include this special provision. At GM discretion, some exceptional creatures might be too powerful to be affected by this gift. So, I already know what some of y'all are thinking. This is exactly for characters like Strahd. This will be very helpful if you're in Ravenloft. We don't necessarily want you to be able to use this to end the campaign in one go. So we left some wiggle room for GMs. GMs, we have your back. We try to spell these things out sometimes to cut down on any whining's a strong word. But we try to minimize arguments popping up at the table. So that's sort of a model here. And we see the same model is going to be used later for supernatural patrons. So it's plug and play. It goes across each one. Now, we're not going to get into them tonight, but we have example deities and divinities in our next chapter. And each one of them has their own precepts that get added to this favor list. But on top of that, they also each have a special bespoke blessing. They come in at all different levels, and they can replace one of the default blessings. So if a divinity has a 10 plus blessing or a 10 plus gift, it replaces the same one from their domain. So this lets you sort of customize a little bit more, make sure that folks, have something that feels right for the thing that they're following. I do want to show another one here that I really enjoyed. This is for deities of commerce and trade. And again, if you're following a deity of trade, of the economy, of civilization, maybe, so their gifts are a little bit different. It doesn't make sense to be like, okay, you follow the god of trade and commerce, now you can make more things explode. So instead, a follower of a deity of trade, gets the ability to basically understand what things should cost. They can't be fooled by supernatural abilities that mess with the value of something. Um, there are a few spells that explicitly do that. They also automatically get a saving throw if someone tries to negotiate with them while they are being charmed. Again, this just makes sense. Like, this is a specialty of this character, something they are devoting themselves to, and so this divinity is going to protect them and assist them in ways that make sense for those themes. Um, they get their own portable hull, very fun. This is what I really enjoy: the blessing of the going rate. Basically, they can donate money to their divinity, sacrifice it in a little ritual, and cast certain spells. You'll notice the costs are sort of reasonable on the low end and become astronomical on the high end. These are very powerful spells, and we wanted to make sure that they had equivalent costs. Um, if the economy in your game world is different, feel free to adjust these numbers. But I think I based this on the spellcasting chart. Been a minute, but I think it was off the spellcasting chart. So there's the starting point for Chapter 1, Religion, from the Game Master's Handbook of Patrons, Pacts and Pantheons. Pre-orders are available now. I've got the link to my website. You don't have to order from my website. Instead, I have aggregated several common ways to order. So we have a link for Bookshop, which is actually sort of my personal preferred way to order. It gives back to local bookstores. You can set it to bookstores in your area. Last I looked, they also had a pre-order sale, so you can knock 10% off. So it's a great deal. 10% off the book for you, money to your local bookstore. And there's also an affiliate link, so it throws 50 cents back to me. So support yourself, support local businesses, and support your local D&D author. We've also got links for Amazon, for Target, for Barnes & Noble. Also, wherever books are sold. You should be able to find us just about anywhere. My allergy medicine is letting me down. So yeah, you can pre-order there. We should have some really exciting news about pre-orders, and that news will be site neutral. So if you go ahead and pre-order now, it doesn't affect that. If you can pre-order, pre-orders are huge. They help us a lot. Pre-orders actually affect how many copies bookstores tend to purchase. So if a lot of you pre-order, this book will show up in a lot more stores in a lot more numbers. If folks don't pre-order, it doesn't go as many places, and it makes Colby sad. So we hope you'll do that. If you have any questions, things you want to see in a video coming up, feel free to drop those on YouTube or Twitch, or best way to get a hold of me, come find me over on Blue Sky. Just look up Hagiologist, which you can see on the page here, or look up Colby Whittaker, and it should pop up somewhere. What else to know? I am not the only Game Master's book happening right now. Couple of awesome books also just came out recently. Ooh, forgive me my allergies. The Game Master's Book of Adventures on Demand comes out on June 23rd. That's a book of 10 one-shots. That's going to be fantastic. Also, a very cool book that I, as the father of Goblin Child, are very excited about is the Game Master's Book of Magic and Mayhem for Kids. This is content from previous Game Master's books that have been explicitly rewritten to be appropriate for younger audiences. Something I run into all the time is parents of little nerdlings who want to know how to get their kids into TTRPGs and what's the best way to do that. There's lots of cool ways, but this is a great resource. I hope you go check it out. That is the Game Master's Book of Magic and Mayhem for Kids. and the Game Master's Book of Adventures on Demand. And of course, this has been the Game Master's Handbook of Patrons, Pacts, and Pantheons. And I'm Colby. Thanks for hanging out with us, and I will catch you soon for Chapter 2 and one of my favorite parts, showing off some of the very, very cool example divinities, which I refer to as my little blorbos. I love each and every one of them. I had to cut some of them along the way, and it broke my heart. But I can't wait to introduce you to some of them, and you'll find even more once you get your hands on a copy of the book. So that's all for now. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as we say at the end of all of our streams, bye, Internet.